Welcome to the Property and Coffee Podcast. Welcome to the Property and Coffee Podcast. I'm Matt Atkinson.
I'm Matt Skehan.
We'll be fueling your financial future with one coffee and property insights at a time,
Helping you navigate the property market like a pro.
And today we're joined by Phoebe Stanley, Cynthia Achwald, Kardik Lakani, Brooke Sushal, Mitchell Lawrence, Laura Harris, Russell, Dave Common, Michael Martin, with Matt Duker, Dennis Armfield, Kardik Lakani. Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Property and Coffee Podcast. This is our debut podcast. We'll be doing a little bit of an introduction on us, your hosts, and also giving you a bit of a rundown as to what you can expect for this podcast and others in the future. So my name is Matthew Atkinson. I'm a finance broker and director at Condor Finance Partners. You can typically find me down in the southeast bay side of Melbourne, either spending some time with my young family or spending some time on the bay. When I'm not doing that, I'm helping our clients navigate the world of property finance. Favorite coffee, double shot latte from my local at Rustic Cafe in Parkdale. And I'll hand over to my co-host, Matt Skehan, to introduce himself. Let us know where he gets his local brew and also what our listeners can expect by tuning into our podcast. Matty, over to you.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, Matt Skehan, Director of Azure Buyers Agent and a Buyers Agent. Beaumaris, Bayside local as well. Beaumaris is home. 2 school-aged children, mate. They keep me busy. We just got back from a little 5 nights in Bright, which is lovely. Love to keep active and fit. Everything that the beautiful Bayside has on offer, mate. In terms of coffee, love my coffee and a bit of a coffee snob, I think. Strong skinny latte man, and also a magic sort of these days I rotate from Two Monkeys in the concourse in Beaumaris. So really looking forward to this podcast, bringing this educational vibe, sort of advocating for our clients and what we're passionate about, finance and property, and obviously a bit of coffee, a bit of Melbourne flavour to it as well. So we're really excited for what we can share with our listeners.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So don't leave it too late would be my quick one mistake people make. So start as early as you can. The best time to start is yesterday, but the second best is today.
Yeah, so I think the key consideration is engage your advisory team and engage them early because, as we all know, things do move very quickly in property transactions. Yes. So instruct your conveyancer, your broker, your finance advisor, your buyer's agent, whoever it may be that you need on site, instruct them early and get advice early because ultimately, deals move very quickly. And if you don't have the correct advice up front, it can be costly and time consuming further down the line.
I would probably say maybe not all business is good business. I would probably also tell myself, you definitely don't need to take on everything because you will be okay and you will still grow. I guess I'm very fortunate that I can pick who I work with as much as they can pick who they work with. But yeah, that's probably what I would tell my younger self.
So this is a very sort of an accountant answer, but I don't know. I think the older you get, the more you tend to get away from milk. So I'm more of a black coffee guy now these days. I remember when I first started my career as a junior accountant at Deloitte, it was a milky latte with like 6 sugars. Slowly transitioned away to just a latte, and now
From a hot chocolate almost.
From a hot chocolate. Well, it used to be the case of I'd go out with my girlfriend and she'd order her coffee and I'd order a hot chocolate or an orange juice, and I'd say, "Look, can you just put it in front of her?" And then it's do a bit of a swapperoo when the waitress had left, but. No, look, it's definitely a black coffee. And to be honest, these days, with the cost of living, we're more than happy to have a good machine at the office or at home and make a black coffee right then and there.
In 2020, I had something happen that I guess will forever change the course of my life. I honestly thought the only thing I had to worry about in 2020 was where I was getting my next toilet roll from and homeschooling my 2 young kids.
Interesting times.
But I had something very interesting that happened one Sunday morning when I was on the toilet. I'd finished what I was doing and I was just getting up, and the next thing I face planted, fainted and went hard down onto the bathroom floor. To cut a very long story short, what ended up happening was that a brain aneurysm was found on my brain, and I ended up having brain surgery in the middle of one of our lockdowns. So you could say that was pretty hectic, and I guess you would call it a little bit of a wake-up moment. And I'm actually extremely fortunate for that happening. For me, fainting that Sunday morning wasn't actually linked to my brain aneurysm. It was a completely random occurrence, but what it did do was it led to my aneurysm to be found, and then for me being able to have a successful operation on that. Because if it hadn't been found in that moment, in the words of my neurosurgeon, that thing was about to blow. And the reality is, if that had happened, I possibly wouldn't be sitting here at all right now, or certainly not in this capacity. So I guess that whole moment and that time for me made me realize a very crucial truth, and that is that running ourselves ragged and being busy all the time is, it's not a badge of honor. It's a recipe for burnout, and ultimately it's a recipe, to not living a life that we're truly thriving.
Been wanting to get into the market, now is as good a time as ever. We can't see prices going backwards in the foreseeable future as well. We're seeing what's happening with rents, and even if we get some moderate growth, over the year. But for me, I think it's going to be another reasonable year for the market. Again, it's the old safest houses analogy is probably going to play out in my opinion, and so good time to take stock and look forward to the year ahead and look and see if your cash flows allow it. Now's as good a time as ever, right? There's some great incentives out there for different home buyers in different markets, and you can capitalize and get in and before the prices get away from you.
One thing we can't make more of is time, and we aim to give clients back that time.
Yep.
So I might answer this in a slightly with a different angle, but so a client might come in and say, I've got this job that I want to get done offshore. It might be very administrative, but I only want 20 hours. Now, we typically struggle a little bit with 20 hours. We might want to get to a more full-time placement. But we look at managers in the business and say, where are those managers being underutilized, and how can we better use their time and resources onshore? And then we take roles or tasks away from them and group that. As long as they're within the same scope of work, it makes sense. So we're effectively trying to give clients back time. Now, when you take the time view on it, it's really the value add happens onshore, right? In the first instance. And then secondly, yes, there are some specialist roles that you can bring in, people that can build relationship with your clients when you're not there, when you're on the road, or when you set them up in such a way that they can run on their own with reasonable oversight and engagement. That's where you really see the value being added. It's when you're almost stepping away and you've settled them into their roles and they're functioning with some form of autonomy, that you can see, okay, well, now I can focus on more valuable tasks. Yeah.
People will go,
that's good. That's I'm keen to hear more.
The missus blows the budget on the expensive tiles or something like that.
It's always the wife's fault.
It's nothing like that. It is actually attempting to do work yourself that you're just not qualified to do. We get a lot of these phone calls.
What sort of area? Like, because I personally, we did Renault and I did none of it.
Plumbing, people try to plumb themselves is a big one, and 9 times out of 10,
you deserve something to go wrong if you're not a plumber and you try and do plumbing.
Well, when we are called down to the property, the funniest thing is, like, they've got a quote and they've decided to do it themselves, and now to fix what they've done, it's going to be more than the original quote. Yeah. So this happens a lot. We actually had one a few years ago with the block.
On the block?
Not on the block, from the block.
Okay.
They
post the block.
Yeah, they watched the block, and they got all inspired to open up their kitchen, living, dining room, and busted down a load-bearing wall and their roof collapsed, and we got that phone call. So I would probably...
That's a very, very expensive retrofitted renovation. Yeah.
James, it's not funny, but it is...
It is funny.
It does highlight the point. It's not funny if it's your roof.
Yeah.
No, and it's really bad too, like, because it's not just like... That is a very extreme example, obviously, but, you get there and they're like... So they're kind of still holding on to that little bit of hope that you can just, put in a couple of beams or something, and then they can plaster and it's all back to normal. No, the house had to be condemned. It was unsafe. They had to move out. They had to go rent somewhere else while they're still paying the mortgage on this place. Well, that was seen to. Engineers have to be called. All that things takes time, so that was a big one. The plumbing things are usually, they've just gone rogue with the sledgehammer or something. Demo is a big one. People doing their own demo and not capping off their electrical or their plumbing before they demo. They just start ripping stuff out. happens all the time. Like,
I think the biggest mistake they could make is taking that offer too soon without knowing all the information. So I think the first offer, it's not a verdict. It's an invitation to the table. And you really need to dive into, who's the buyer? What's their urgency behind this purchase, and how flexible are they on terms? And ultimately, who else is in the mix? Are there more buyers where you can create that genuine competition? And I think that's really important when you need all the information before you can make an informed decision.
Yeah, look, my days are full and my days are busy. But do you know what? I get to do this. And this is really living my dream, living my entrepreneurial dream. The way that I run both the businesses is I don't actually technically run them myself. I have an incredible, outstanding team across both businesses. A group of fabulous people doing incredible, amazing work, which I am beyond proud of. And it's really just the stewardship of those people. It's the stewardship of looking after them and making sure that they have all the tools and everything, and the support that they need to be able to go out and do incredible work and bring the joy across Australia.
It's just, you still can't get rid of it.
Yeah, there's no way getting under, so it all has to be done from above, which just that inflates that, it inflates the actual restumping to sort of more like 50,000.
Yeah.
And then all the
other
ongoing costs of rebuilding everything above there. Yeah. So you can be looking at anywhere between 200,000 to 300,000 even, to get the house back to where it should be.
Yeah.
Matt, I've said it to you before. If you owned a racehorse and it was worth $500,000, would you run it every day? Would you have it be training morning, night, every day of the week? No, you'd rest it.
You're asking the wrong person, Dave. I don't even like horses, but that's a good. I get the analogy here.
The analogy is you would look after it, you'd feed it well, you'd prepare it, and you'd have breaks. Yep. So it might win 2 races in a row. You give it a break. Yep. Whereas lawyers just keep going. They don't have a break.
It's not just lawyers. Sensationalistic news sells, right? So fear sells. So I think right now we're in a fear, but one of the quotes that I love is the Warren Buffett quote is, "Be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy." But a lot of people know it, but not many people actually have the courage to act. So I think now's an amazing time. So
good time to take up some opportunities. A livable city, and Bayside being one of those suburbs.
I think it's important to note, maybe this is a bit controversial, but I think the term investment is really around people's personal property. Yeah. I think the reality is that we're looking currently, I think the days of multi investment properties in Victoria has probably seen its day for a few years based on what we're currently looking at. I think we'll go past the new financial year. We're no longer having 50% reductions on capital gains, most likely. Double land tax costs and holding costs and vacant land taxes. I think it's very difficult to hold multiple properties here now. But I think in terms of investment within Australia and people investing in their own home, I think Australians have unlocked that key that most other countries haven't. I think if you like, for me, coming from the UK and seeing how the European market runs, most people don't think about putting financial equity into their biggest asset, their largest non-taxable income they can within their lifetime, which is their home. And I think what people in Australia realise is that we're going to see continuous growth. We always have done, typical 4% yield year on year of a lifetime is what we typically see in most suburbs within Australia. For most people to put that into their biggest asset to grow, whether it's during renovations, whether it's, new schools coming into the area or regentrification within an area, most people are looking at that as a growth mechanism for the future to ultimately retire on. And I think that's the big thing is that most people don't think about it taking the money out today. That's never the plan for most people.
It's a bricks and mortar bank account.
It's a bricks and mortar bank account. That's exactly right. And people will trade up through the years to get to that point where ultimately kids, everybody else has left. The empty nesters ultimately become downsizers. They're in the house for probably 5-7 years with all the kids gone. They're rattling around in it by themselves. The block's too big.
It's too long for you though, isn't it? You want to sell them, get them out, and get turnover.
That's okay.
Sales agent.
They got it. They want to get them back, and then they start to realise that the house is too big, but they need space for the grandkids, and then they think about going down. And that's when people start to look at the unlocking of that $1 to $2 million to then put into, some goes into the superannuation, some goes to kids to help buy, upgrade and all the rest of it. And that's the goal. That's the Australian dream that most people don't think about. It's
so
not
the company share scenario, the title type is probably a big one. Covenants that we've addressed. Easements are another one where you've got pipes under the ground and you can't build over them. If you want to extend, that becomes relevant. So they're probably the big three that I'd sort of share with you. But there's lots and lots of others. I have a lot of clients that say to me, "Hey, Matt, can you take a quick look at this?" And look, I'm not a doctor, all right, but it's a bit like saying to your doctor, "Hey, can you just have a quick look over me?" Well, no, scans have to be done, tests have to be undertaken, and it's a little bit like that with contracts. And the devil's in the detail. There's a lot of different things. It's not necessarily also about what's in it. It's about, well, what's not in it? What should be in it? What should you know? And these are the things we like to try and help our clients through.
I think, look, I love the question because when you talk about growth, we can sometimes get caught up in 10, 20, 30, 40% shifts. And bringing it back down to the 1 to 5% was something that we were instilled in professional sport, because you've got 700 or so athletes in AFL now. They're all fine-tuned athletes. They're all doing the same thing. So what are you doing to find that 1 or extra percent that can, A, get you a game in your own team, because it's 44 or 46 blokes fighting for 22 spots, but B, then get you ahead of your opponent. And one of the things I think was consistency. I think consistency of being able to show up, consistency. We always had a thing where being available for 80% is better than being in and out, going at 100%. And I think with everything that we do, being consistent, but also being curious. And I think one of the things that I learned throughout my career, probably not in the early days, I thought I knew it all, but the power of curiosity. And that's in asking questions, in seeking feedback, being curious about everything, and having those that you can trust around you, and that you can ask the right questions, get the right answers that are going to help you on your journey. And I think when I look for those 1 to 5%, it's consistency, curiosity. And then I think the last thing I sort of noted down, was that have a go. I think failure is something that in the professional industry of football, like, you've got to fail fast, learn fast, get on with it and grow. And I think that's something that we can also take into our business landscape, property development, property investing, whatever it is. Like, have a go with trusted advisors and trusted people around you.
Don't be scared of failure. You can always, sun's going to rise the next day, and hopefully you can go again.
Yeah. And, again, we're looking for 1 to 5% tweaks, and, sometimes it's going to go wrong. And it's about knowing, well, that's not going the right way. Cut my losses. Let's move on to another way. And I think that was the joy of football. It was, you didn't have time to wait till tomorrow, because tomorrow meant you weren't selected. Tomorrow meant you weren't part of the team. Tomorrow meant you were running out in the VFL squad on a Sunday and not in the beautiful cover of a Etihad Stadium or something like that. So, you had to do it. You had to go. But I think, consistently showing up and consistently being curious about the world around us, about the people around us, about the culture. They're the things that I think just led us to being able to survive for me for 10 years in a system that was pretty cutthroat.
And I say supply, demand and sentiment, but sentiment drives the market the most. So I think that's because obviously property is really pretty simple, but sentiment drives a lot. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of, and people just fear, mate, what do they freeze? They wait.
The news, let's be honest, good news doesn't sell as well as chaos, and we're seeing a bit of
in
that.
The business section a couple of weeks ago, Microsoft's going to drop $32 billion in Australia to build data centers, AI, train up people for AI, right? So they see Australia as, with the space we have, but that's sandwiched in the middle, mate, after all the machete attacks and everything else and the dodgy brothers of us politicians. So it was, you sort of got to look past the fear mongering. So again, it's just headwinds, mate, like the fear sells. So negativity is, and we've got a human bias for negative, so it's fun.
That's it.
Look, I think a lot of these changes, particularly those in relation to trusts, and trusts are very commonly used, particularly as part of property holding, wealth holding, small business structures. A lot of these changes haven't gone through yet, and might very well have some changes to them or particularly those trust changes, I suspect, might very well have some changes to them before they're actually implemented or legislated. So assuming that they're, passed and legislated. So I would be saying to people, look, don't jump the gun and make any drastic changes just as yet, because we don't know exactly what that sort of the trust legislation specifically will look like, or those changes. But I'd be saying to most people, just go talk to your accountant and start planning for, if these changes do go through, how would that impact my business? What strategies could I put in place to ensure that I'm not being overly taxed compared to my previous sort of situation? Again, there are lots of strategies theoretically that could be implemented to ensure that we're sort of protecting ourselves from being, overly taxed as a direct result of those changes. So I think having a plan in place for the changes is probably going to be the best way about going this, to ensure that, you're sort of covered. But again, I would sort of encourage most people not to necessarily go out and do anything crazy just as yet, until we probably have more information, particularly in relation to those trust changes at this point in time.
Can you buy a house with a 5% deposit in Melbourne?
Not a broker, but yes, mate. There's lots of different schemes out there. There's lots of different sort of ways that you can get into that market. So I think particularly first home buyers, the barrier to entry is that sort of deposit, that starting point. So absolutely get some advice, and as I said, whether it's chatting to your property professional. But yeah, in short, yes, you can. So I think don't let that hold you back.
No, look. Those are wide words. And look, that's all we got time for today. I will say this, Matty, thanks for running that through with us. And, hopefully we've answered most people's questions. Look, if there's still some questions out there that people have, by all means, please reach out to us on one of our social media platforms, and we'll be running another session like this. So we hope you've enjoyed it, learned a few things. Until next time.
Cool. Thanks, Matty.
If you would like to keep receiving property insights and golden nuggets from our guests, please do follow us, and you'll get the latest episode released on a fortnightly basis.